Hello everyone and welcome to my Bachelor Nation 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Joan Vassos Chock Chapple go back to where it all began. Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos and her handsome fiancé Chock Chapple went to social media to share that they were going back to where it all began. The couple just wrapped up their first holiday, merging their two families together, and now are back in Los Angeles to take care of a few things, including their trip down memory lane. Keep reading to find out more and see photos. Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos and Chock Chapple take trip down memory lane. Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos didn't think it was possible to find love again. However, she did and is now engaged to Kansas native Chock Chapple. The couple has been enjoying being out of hiding and sharing their love with the world. In recent interviews, they revealed that one of the first moments they knew there was really something between them was during their one-on-one date to Disneyland in California. Joan chose Chock for that first date, and she has zero regrets about doing so. She and Chock both admitted to Bachelor Nation that it was during that date she knew there was something there between them. Chock said, "It kind of happened over stages, but the big monumental moment was at Disneyland. It was just instant. That we were just together, and it was the start of being a couple. We had conversations, and they actually had to kind of break us up a couple of times because Joan had to do a couple interviews. So that was the moment I was going, I'm really going to like this person." She chimed in and agreed with him. She said she felt the same things. Now they are going back to Disneyland to relive some of those moments. Their time at Disneyland. On this second trip to Disneyland, Golden Bachelorette Joan Vassos and Chock Chapple have many more there to celebrate with them. Several other alums, including women from the Golden Bachelor, were there to have fun with them. Some of them were Nancy and Kathy were both there. Others in attendance were Susie Evans, Jonathan Johnson, Justin Glaze, Kylie Russell, and Avon Jones were all there. In one social media post, Susie gushed about how excited she was to meet them. Joan shared a video on Instagram where she shared they were back there, and it is actually where she fell in love with Chock. They both agreed it's the happiest place on earth, and it's where the magic happened. They look like they had a blast. What do you think about Joan and Chock returning to where their relationship really began to get serious? Joan Vassos and Chock Chapple had weathered the whirlwind that is the Golden Bachelorette. Their journey was riddled with laughter, tears, and the occasional uproar that only the most dramatic of rose ceremonies could muster. But now, away from the cameras, the pair had decided to take a step back, to go to where it all began and rediscover what had made their connection unshakable. The destination. A quaint little inn nestled on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. It was here, on a crisp autumn day months ago, that Joan and Chock had their first one-on-one date during the show. The producers, ever the romantics, had orchestrated an elaborate setup involving a horse-drawn carriage, a private chef, and 1,000 fairy lights strung across oak trees. But beneath all that glitz, it was the simple moments that had mattered. The easy laughter as they sipped wine, the shared glances across a candlelit table, and the way Chock had casually offered Joan his jacket when the evening chill set in. Now, Joan had convinced Chock to return, sans cameras, for a weekend retreat to relive that magic, not as contestants but as two people genuinely trying to build a life together. A walk down memory lane. The morning air was cool, carrying with it the scent of pine and the faint saltiness of the nearby marshes. Joan, ever the planner, had arranged for them to retrace their steps from that fateful first date. Dressed in a flowy, pastel blouse and jeans, she looked effortlessly elegant. Chock, in his signature flannel and boots, joked that he felt underdressed beside her, though she reassured him with a playful nudge and a warm smile. Their first stop was the small garden where their carriage ride had begun. Time had stripped away the polished perfection of the show's setup. The arch of roses was now bare, and the cobblestone path was littered with fallen leaves. Yet Joan found it even more beautiful in its natural state. "Do you remember how nervous we both were?" Joan asked, her eyes sparkling with nostalgia. Chock chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. I was trying so hard not to say anything dumb. I think I told you I liked your shoes 3 times. Joan laughed, her voice ringing through the empty garden. And I pretended I hadn't heard you each time. They stood there for a moment, the silence between them comfortable. Then Chock reached out, lacing his fingers through Joan's. You know, Joni, I'd go through every awkward minute of that night again if it meant I'd end up here with you. Dinner for 2, minus the drama. One of the highlights of their first date had been the private dinner prepared by a celebrity chef. Joan had managed to book the same dining space, but opted for a more down-to-earth menu this time. Fried chicken, shrimp and grits, and pecan pie for dessert. As they sat down to eat, the atmosphere felt lighter than it had during the show. There was no pressure to impress, no looming camera crews ready to capture their every reaction. Joan relished the freedom to be herself, to laugh loudly at Chock's corny jokes, to steal bites from his plate without worrying about how it might look on screen. I've got a confession, Chock said, leaning forward with a conspiratorial grin. Back then, I was so nervous I barely tasted the food. I think I scarfed it down just to give my hands something to do. Joan laughed, shaking her head. And here I thought you were just really into fine dining. They talked long into the evening, their conversation flowing easily from fond memories to future dreams. Joan admitted she'd been hesitant to do the show in the first place, fearing the chaos of reality TV. Chock confessed that he'd nearly backed out during the casting process, worried he wouldn't measure up to the other contestants. Funny how life works, huh? Joan mused, swirling her glass of sweet tea. If either of us had said no, we wouldn't be sitting here now. Chock reached across the table, his hand warm as it covered hers. And that would have been the biggest mistake of my life. Dancing under the stars. After dinner, they wandered back to the inn, the night sky a canvas of stars. Joan's heart fluttered as she noticed a familiar sight. A small portable speaker set up on the patio, just like the one from their first date. Chock, ever the gentleman, had planned a surprise of his own. Care for a dance, Miss Vassos? He asked, bowing theatrically and extending his hand. Joan grinned, feeling like a giddy teenager. Why, Mr. Chapple? I thought you'd never ask. He could play, and a soft, jazzy tune filled the air. They swayed together under the stars, their movements unhurried and unpolished but perfect in their simplicity. Joan rested her head against Chock's chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat beneath her cheek. This feels real, she murmured. It is, Chock replied, his voice low and steady. No cameras, no producers, just us. This is how I want it to be. Joan tilted her head back to look at him. So do I. A love rooted in reality. The weekend flew by in a blur of quiet moments and heartfelt conversations. They explored the marshes on a guided tour, shared a bottle of wine by the fire pit, and even attempted to bake cookies in the inn's tiny kitchen, a venture that ended in hilariously misshapen blobs of dough, but no shortage of laughter. On their last night, as they sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Joan felt a wave of contentment wash over her. For all the glitz and drama that the Golden Bachelorette had brought into her life, it was these simple, unassuming moments that truly mattered. Chock seemed to sense her thoughts. Do you ever wonder what life would have been like if we hadn't met on the show? He asked. Joan considered this for a moment before shaking her head. I don't like to think about what ifs. All I know is that we did meet, and we're here now. That's enough for me. Chock smiled, pulling her close. For me too. As the stars began to twinkle above them, Joan realized that going back to where it all began wasn't just about revisiting a place. It was about grounding their love in something real, something unshakable. And in that moment, she knew they were on the right path, not just as two people who had found love on a TV show, but as partners ready to take on the world together.